Hello and welcome to Movie Buffs, a show that covers the best action films of all time. I'm your host, Cisco from Misfit Minded. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Misfit_Minded, on Twitter, Rampage_Misfit, and my website at misfitminded.com.
And I'm your host, Shani B. You can find me on all the socials at It's Me, Shani B.
And today we're talking about the iconic franchise that turned 35 this year. Of course, we're talking about Die Hard, franchise that crosses 4 decades. The Die Hard films chronicle the high-stakes misadventures of Detective John McClane, who always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So Shani B, what do you think of this franchise? Yes.
I mean, I love it, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that I think will always stand as something I want to revisit and rewatch all the way through, even though there are some that are not as enjoyable as others. But I just love this one. I love Bruce Willis for life. And I like the idea of him being a kind of franchise figure that can return to every movie believably. You know, he's not like
Mhm.
a killer returning again. He finds a way to believably be like, oh, I am a cop and there is a crime taking place and I happen to be there. And I kind of like that, like silly, simple setup that it always is, because then the story and Bruce Willis do the rest for me. And I love that. Um, what about you? What's your relationship to this franchise?
I think it's kind of similar to what we were talking about with the Rambo series. In that, it pretty much my love for it begins and ends with the first movie.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk more about that. Okay, keep going,
um
keep going.
It just and like a lot of these like action franchises, it's like what you just said is basically what I kind of can't get past it. It's just like the whole beauty of the first one, which I saw yesterday on the big screen for the first time, um,
Yes.
which was amazing. But the whole point of that one was like, this is an average New York cop finds himself in this situation. Oh shit, how is he gonna get himself out of this? And then every sequel you make after that, it becomes less and less, this guy is in a situation he can't control, like, it's like, no, he's done this 5 times already now. So, I guess it just happens to him, like, or like, it's but you can apply
Yeah, he's one of those people.
so many franchises, like, if it's like Taken 3 and it's like, "Oh my god, his wife and daughter get kidnapped again, shocker. Someone get them on a watch list," or something already. Or like we said, like Rambo, it's like this guy can't ever get on vacation without being part of a war somewhere. It's like
It's very true.
so,
The
yeah.
action franchise hero, he rarely gets to stay the authentic man that was created for us at the top of these franchises. Definitely, to your point, I'm interested to keep comparing the longevity to the way that the story must evolve, because I feel like he's a celebrity within the films always. Like, they're always like, "John McClane, John McClane." Everyone's always saying his name, everyone's always wanting to get to know who he is,
Yeah.
and that's, like, an interesting part of this franchise to me. Because I do feel like I completely agree that as they go on, it's sort of like, okay, there has to be something else that goes on in this dude's life. He can't just do one of these adventures every like 6 years. But I kind of feel like Bruce Willis grounds that. His ability to still be like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
Really makes it feel like even he is sort of like, how can this really be what's happening to me? How can I still be in the wrong place at the wrong time 30 years later, 35 years later?
Yeah. I mean, he's like, I'm not like, I do enjoy some of the sequels or whatever, but it's just like that's my biggest problem with it. Is it's just like one is such a perfect movie, perfect script, perfect execution. Like it didn't need any sequels. And then once you get down the sequel rabbit hole, it's like, the where what I forget what is it, I think it's the fourth one, the one that's PG-13. And you get the yippee ki motherfucker, but like the
That's it.
gunshot has to cover up the motherfucker because it's PG-13. Oh my god, we're so edgy, bro.
That is a
It's
real
like,
bummer.
I know. It's just like, God, we can't. you're trying to do something and you can't even do it all the way because of your restraints that you put on your movie.
Yeah, that you
Um,
chose, because 'cause
yeah.
you're to your point, the violence in the first one is awesome. It's so bloody, it's so
Oh, yeah.
explosive, and, this is a franchise where none of them should be PG-13, but I
No.
guess, like, it has to survive over the years, so it tried a lot of weird things to stay alive, and I'm curious, in the sequel space, how do you feel about them finishing the initial trilogy with, like, the whole "someone is doing this to him on purpose" storyline? Because you know how that was, like, supposed to be a different movie, and they just, like, appropriated it to Die Hard, with a vengeance?
Yeah.
Um, what do you think about ho like, I think that movie also saves the fact that, like, if it was gonna be a trilogy, then maybe it's following some trilogy rules, but
Mhm.
I also feel like that is an unpopular opinion, so I wanna get your take on that. Do you like number 3?
That's probably, like, the best one outside of the first one for me is number
Okay.
um, but again, it's like you're saying, it's like that could have been its complete own movie and probably been equally as great.
Yep.
But because it's we needed to make franchises now, it has to be part of Die Hard, so, is that the one too where it's like Hans Gruber's brother is
That's the one, Simon
Simon
Says.
Says? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Some of these all, like, kind of blend together to for me too, so that's it's kinda confusing, but, some like, all the different terrorists, that are coming after
Exact
him. Um, but yeah, I think and then they so again, right there, like, they do enough to, like, tie it together to the franchise, so it doesn't just feel like like a script that was just like, they scratched off the title and just put like Die Hard 3 on it, and that was
right.
it. But yeah, that one's good. 2, I never was like really into 2, to be honest. Like, if we're talking about the franchise now, and then like we talked about how 4 is kind of a bummer in a lot of ways, but there's some cool stuff in it, like some cool
Justin Long,
action.
Maggie Q, yeah, the people are cool.
And then 5, I watched once and will probably never revisit again.
Same.
It's
5
so
is
bad.
so bad.
It's so bad. Fully Bruce Willis checked out, like, "I'm only doing this for the check. I don't wanna be here." It
They
sucks.
just, like, didn't finish it. It feels like the color was, like, never completed. They were like, "We just aren't gonna spend money on coloring this. It's not worth it."
Yeah.
Yeah, number 5 for sure, I can live without completely, but I
Trying
think
to
that's,
make
like,
Guy
what
Courtney happen, like, still
stop trying to make Jai Courtney happen, you guys. He's not gonna
it's not
happen.
happening.
Oh, man, it's true. I feel like that's an interesting thing about these franchises too, is a lot of them try to do that thing where they're looking for the guy that might be able to take it
Oh,
over.
Terminator, Emilia Clarke, they tried, like,
Exactly.
not
All the prettiest ladies cannot
happening.
make Jai Courtney
Yeah.
desirable,
Jai was Jai
unfortunately.
Courtney in that franchise too? Or no?
Yeah.
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 It's just yeah,
He's everywhere.
bad,
He,
bad.
his best role, in my opinion, is in the first Jack Reacher, which, like, nobody likes, but I like
Okay.
it because I like the way he and Tom Cruise, like, work off of each other.
I remember
But
liking that
otherwise,
okay enough. I don't
yeah,
remember it though, like, at all.
I'm pretty good, otherwise, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I
Um,
guess what do you think though about like the difference between trying to make a complete story and doing like maybe an encapsulated trilogy and like the sequel churn out? Because I think what's interesting about when we were talking about like Rocky and Rambo is they don't feel some of them feel like a continued string story and some of them feel like they could have been one-offs. And Die Hard 3 sort of toes the line. So I guess like, what do you think about this franchise in terms of, is it actually telling John McClane's story, or is it
no.
really literally the comic book of John McClane's misadventures?
I think it would be the comic book version. I mean, I couldn't tell you, like, what's John McClane's arc in out of the 5 movies. Like, I don't has he
Yeah,
progressed
no.
in what way? Like, it's not really about that.
I
Um,
mean, is his relationship technically repaired with, Mary Elizabeth Winstead? Like, maybe they want that because then they try the Jai Courtney thing with, like, the son aspect? And I
But I
guess,
mean,
like
like, that's what bums me out too, like, whenever I watch the first one, because again, like I keep saying, perfect movie.
yes,
Why did Reginald Johnson never come back? That storyline is so amazing, like,
it's so true.
they meet at the end and they just have, like, this bro moment, it's so
Yeah,
beautiful,
they're so grateful.
and they're basically like, he even says at the end, he's like, because Reginald Johnson's wife, he says, "I'm expecting my first child," and he's like, "Yeah, man, we gotta take our kids out for it," and then he goes like,
Ice
"Yeah,
cream.
sounds like a date," and it's just like, "Oh, why isn't that a sequel? I'd rather see that than fucking just put John McClane in a terrorist scenario." Like, I wanna see the progression. Same thing with, like,
Yes.
his marriage to Holly, like, that was a whole arc in the first one where, they're getting divorced,
Yep.
there's like a push and pull there. And then at the end, through, offing all of these terrorists, saves his marriage and Christmas in the process. So that is why number one is a perfect movie and didn't ever need a sequel.
I
And
mean,
if
it's
you have,
true.
why didn't you bring any of those? I would have Holly never came back, you know what I
Well,
mean?
they
Like,
when they bring them back in number 2, though, they don't bring them back in a significant way, because I
right.
think that's what makes number 2 really random, is
Yeah.
that, like, it does try to bring the newscaster back. Somehow he too is there to cover
Oh
this
yeah,
story.
that's right.
Like,
I
it
forgot
just
about that.
the second one in particular is, like, really staged in a way where you're like, "Okay, this one clearly is like, we really don't care about the story. We just want to do all the things we think made the first one awesome." And I think that's why maybe the third one is the one that I always thought was the sequel, because I think people just were like, "We could skip number 2, it's, like, literally nothing."
Mhm.
He intercepts another terrorist cell, and that's really all he does. And at least in the third film or whatever, he gets to be more active with, like, another person. It just should have been Reginald Vale, even though Samuel L. for life, of course. But you know what I mean? They never bring back and expand the world like it's the MCU, and I guess they're too early in the franchise discussion to do it.
To have, Samuel Jackson come in the credits and be like, "We're forming a team of terrorist fighters.
Yes.
We want you on our team." Uh,
Oh, that's, like, hard because I almost feel like McLean I want McLean in the MCU because I think I prefer it, like, personally, but I also feel like McLean's a good DC, like, figure too. He'd really fit into the DC universe, so maybe Suicide Squad or
mhm,
whatever the Marvel equivalent is, because I'm not actually very well versed.
true. He's good in Sin City. I mean, that's kinda like a graphic novel. Bruce Willis in
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I feel like having, like, a good director can also make a difference, and I do feel like what's strange about franchises is they're, like, towing a weird line where it can't always be about the director when it really should, because, like, McTiernan leading this with the high level of art and, special effects and all kinds of stuff, it is kind of like I wish it was a Mission Impossible style franchise sometimes where big directors came and wanted to do something really cool with Bruce Willis. Like, I kind of feel like because Bruce Willis basically proved himself with this movie, he didn't get the same respect that like TC gets through his franchise.
yeah, and, like, I think why 1 and 3 are the best is because he directed them, McTiernan.
Oh, McTiernan comes back for number 3?
I'm pretty I just checked, I just double checked. Yeah, he did.
Let's go.
So I mean, that I feel like that has a big part of it because there's some amazing, like, suspenseful set pieces in 3. Um,
Yeah, three's pretty wild.
but 1, I would say, still has, like, the best villain. I mean, Alan Rickman. It's just amazing, like, I guess, like, rewatching 1, like, how every, like, 15 minutes is, like, a different performance from an actor that's, like, instantly memorable and, like, going for it and doing
Yes.
something interesting, and I'm just like, "Man, like, if only, like, action movies today, like, had this level of, like, even our henchmen can be interesting." Like, the one henchman that just, like, eats candy bars behind the counter. I'm like, "Just r you didn't need no lines. You didn't need no lines for that." This guy was just hungry,
Mhm.
picking up a hotel like, a a tower is it's gotta get you hungry, you
It's a
know?
high
You
stress
gotta
situation. You require energy and protein, lots of stuff that you need to think about. And you're right, those details, they're so good. Like when Alan Rickman is trying to trick John McClane and he's sort of like,
oh my
"Oh, you're one of those
god.
guys."
His
His
English
American accent,
his American accent is so bad, but so good though at the same time.
perfect. Yeah, it's so
He's like,
surprising to
"No,
see him.
no." It always makes me laugh, like, just he really goes for it. Even, like, John gives him props too, like, afterwards where I mean, he figures it out that he's not really an
Who he says he
American.
is.
Yeah, but,
Mhm.
like, I like even, like, uh, once he, reveals himself and he's just like, "Man, you went in on that accent," like
McClane always cuts through the bullshit. He sure does.
Oh, every line in there is like a fucking one line, like, so memorable. I mean, like, again, like, very simple, but just, like, the amount of times that just it's just Bruce Willis just going, "California." Like, and
Yeah, that's
it's
what they
funny.
said. Yes.
It's California," like, the guy that just kisses him on the cheek, and he's just like,
Yep.
"California."
Here we
It's
are.
almost like he's,
Yep.
like, winking to the camera, like, "Ugh, California," like
I was gonna say, like, there's something about how why they can't have an expanded universe here is because the best part of these movies is when McClane is hanging out with himself
talking to
and talking
himself.
to himself.
Or, like, in the vents with the with the
Exactly, exactly.
"Vámonos, tranquilas."
Loading guns. "Oh, yeah." In the elevator shoot, just I love that he's making sure that he's gonna say how he kind of feels, whether there's a person there or not, because I think that's part of the everyman of him. That, like,
Mhm,
sometimes in real life, when people, like, shock me, I'll say something out loud without even realizing it, you know?
mhm.
Like, I think that there's something about his really authentic quality that's for sure in the first one, but that, like, over time is a hard thing to stay on the ground with because the franchise around him
It's
goes from
bigger.
being this thing
Yeah,
yeah, that
it has
could
to
be.
expand.
Mhm.
Where, one, you're just on this one building, amazing location, honestly, like,
Hell
it's
yeah.
so cool looking and just the concept of it, like, literally after Die Hard was made, it was, like, people trying to make their own franchises off of Die Hard on a boat, Die Hard on a
Yep.
plane, Die Hard on a train, like, all this other
On
shit.
a bus. Let's
Yeah.
go.
So
I wanna do all of them.
that should tell you right there, like, how influential it is, but, yeah, they always like, to your point, they always leave out, like, that relationship, like, I think that authenticity is what Roy or, Al is that yeah, Al, Reginald Vel Johnson, that's what he picks up on over the radio where he's like, "This is just a guy trying to survive, like, and they're trying to help each other,"
Mhm.
like, but, you know, all the, bureaucracy of it, of police work and, like, "I'm the boss here, like, I call the shots," and they have, like, some amazing assholes in the first like, Hall of Fame level. The principal from Breakfast Love Club comes in there,
Yes.
dick
Such a
swinging,
prick.
just like,
Mhm.
"How do you know?" He's like, "He said he could tell the ID was fake," and he's like, "Jesus Christ!" He could be a bartender for Christ's sake, like, such
Yep.
a prick.
Yep.
It's so hilarious, and then, like, then the FBI comes, and they treat him like that. Johnson& and Johnson come, and
That's right.
they're just like these, like, wild, like, "Reminds you of Saigon, hey, slick?" Like, fucking adrenaline junkies, and then you got, the news guy from Ghostbusters, you
Hell
know,
yeah.
and
Such a
then
dick.
yep, and then, what's his name at the party? The cokehead dude at the
Oh,
party.
yeah, that who's
Uh,
trying to, like, make moves on
yeah,
Holly.
just such an asshole, like, thinks he's got
Such
it
an
all under
idiot.
control, Hans, Bubby.
And I also love how like, I can't remember what does McClane call him a jackass when he's like, "I don't know you."
Yeah.
The way that he's trying to
Yeah,
also
he's
save this
screaming
guy.
over the headset of the radio. Just like, "You
Don't
don't know
believe
what
this
you're
guy.
doing, you don't know these guys."
You like, still McClane is, like, low key a really good guy
He
because he
is.
hates this dude. He knows what this dude is trying to do and what this dude has been trying to do with his wife as well. And still, he's like, "I'm not trying to get this guy killed, though."
Show him the watch. It's a Rolex. Like, oh, even like that's like his
He's
first
so
line. It's like, oh god, I hate this guy
yeah.
already. But
He's the worst guy.
and I even like that, like, you this is stuff you forget, but like I've seen it so many times that like again when that happens, you like look at the little scenes and it's so well done how like the first scene that Bruce Willis has with his wife when he meets her at the party, and there's
Mhm.
this like very like tight line they're walking where it's like that she made the spare bedroom. He might come over for
Mhm.
Christmas. She's leaving that option open. And but then she's like asked where he's staying. And and she's like, why not? It could be just easier if you just stay. The kids would love to have you. I would love to have you. Like, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, he's going good. And then he has to put his foot in his mouth and be like, okay, Miss Gennaro, and like start a fight. And it's like, oh, dude, you were so close. Like,
Yep.
she was opening the door and you just slammed it shut. But then afterwards, what we were saying, like him by himself is so funny because he's in the mirror basically like scolding himself like I am every time I see that part. And he's like, "You idiot. Why did you do that?" There's just something
Exactly.
so human about it where it's just like we've all had that moment where in a relationship or a friendship or something, we say something we shouldn't have. And then afterwards, we're like, fuck, why did I say that? I really shouldn't have gone that far. Like, I didn't have to go that far. But the
Exactly.
whole Gennaro last name thing, too, on a script level, plays a huge part because that's how they don't know that they're married, and then that becomes like a huge reveal later on. uh,
Yeah.
so it's so clean, like that script. I feel like if I was going to write an action movie, I'd probably like study that one the most. It's just
Mm.
so everything.
It's that one and Legally Blonde, right side by side, 2 of the best screenplays.
The best action franchise starters for sure.
That's the
uh
pack.
but just like, yeah, how everything is just like connected like all around, like it's simple things like when he calls I'm just forgetting everyone's name in here, and I just watched the movie. God, I'm just tired. I'm just
I
tired, I
mean,
promise. He calls the limo driver, and they're talking at first, and then that's when they cut the lines, and like that's his first clue that something is off. You know what I
right.
mean? And then the
Mhm.
limo driver's stuck in there the whole time because they close off the
That's
the
right.
exits, and so it's like, and you kind of forget about him, but then at the end, he has his like hero moment, where he gets
Yep.
to crash.
Everything is set up and in place the way it's
Yeah,
supposed to be, even as meticulous as, like, the terrorists themselves are going to be, which is, I think, to your point, in the script, like, nothing is wasted. That scene with them is so tight and precise.
yeah,
All of the dialogue, when it takes place, is so precise, and so is the action. The sequences that carry you through are they're so good, and they don't have to go wide, and they don't have to recontextualize the scene for us the way that in, like, 4 and 5, just a bunch of recontextualizing because there's
yeah,
so much CG by that point. And here, you could see how dirty this fool is and sweaty and bloody and messy everything is. It's awesome.
yeah. His beater gets like so dirty so fast. It's hilarious.
And I love that he has no shoes, that he's without shoes. So
But
he's like,
again,
"Damn,
they
I got"
set that up. That's the first scene of the movie where he's on the plane, and
So
you just get
good.
this random guy, "Fish with your toes."
Exactly.
"I've been doing it for 9 years, trust me." He's like, "Alright, fish with your toes," and he fucking tries it, so later on,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Son of
there
a
is
bitch,
something
he was
about
right, yeah.
how yeah, how well thought out it is and how all of these franchises, I think they start in a place that is so strong. No wonder people get this idea of, yeah, there's always more to go into the well and get from this because it is a rich idea. They just didn't really develop it in this franchise. Like,
Mhm.
I do think it's kind of weird how in 2 and 3, like Holly is the mom. In 2 and 3, Holly is, like, around, they're still trying to get their marriage
Yeah, I think it's
to
the
work,
second one. I forgot
but
that, like, they did try and bring her back for, like she's, like,
Well,
on an
he in
airplane
the
though,
3rd one
right? Or
yeah,
something?
she's on an airplane the whole time in the 2nd,
So
but in
weird.
the 3rd one, everyone's talking about how he should just get over himself and call her again. So we're just, like,
We're
starting
back. We're back to
over
square
yeah,
one.
with
Yeah,
that, and then they just completely skip over it in 4 when they're
yeah,
like, "We have this, like, nice young hot actress who will play his daughter, and we'll be preoccupied with her instead." And
yeah.
also, we'll give Maggie Q no lines because she's just
I don't
awesome.
know.
It's
Crazy.
so disappointing.
I know. Um, God, what was I gonna say? Um, but yeah, it's just I don't know, everything set up, payoff, like, yeah, the shoes part, and then that becomes, like, a small problem he has to think about at all times because like, that's
Mhm.
convenient, and, like, when he takes out the first guy and he, like, tries on his shoes and he's like, "I happen to kill the one guy that has speech taller than my sister."
Yes.
He's just it's so funny, it's so good, and then, like, Hans uses that against him, by shooting "Shoot the glass," and
Yeah.
blah, blah, like, and that causes, to your point, some, like, really bloody, foot trail, so, yeah,
Oh,
everything just
God.
feels so real, and, like, for a movie that's 35 years old, like, it's a Christmas classic, I gotta say. It's that
Truly.
that whole thing was I feel like that debate has been fought and won at this point because I saw Die Hard this week in December, didn't come out in December when
That's
on
right.
original release date, so what does that tell you? People are watching Die Hard around Christmas, that's why they're
Anyway.
showing it back in again, and it is though, like, if I didn't wanna bring this debate up, I don't care if you I don't know if you
Oh,
care
I'm
about.
in. I think it's 100% a Christmas movie.
But, like, the music throughout, like, there's, like, literally jingle bells, like, like, jingling throughout the whole thing. It's
The whole reason that the heist can take place is because
of
Christmas is
Christmas.
detaining everyone, right.
Yeah,
It
they're at a Christmas
Christmas is
party.
integral to the story.
Yeah. I didn't know they celebrated Christmas in Japan.
I
Mr.
mean,
Takagi. The way
there's something yeah, there's something about how, like, I think McClane is a character people really love because he also seems to say what a lot of people are
he's sort of
thinking.
dumb. He's sort of dumb. He's sort of like the average dumb American, like
I mean, I'm sorry to say, but, like, that's what I mean. He says what the average American is kind of thinking,
Yeah.
and it's often a little buffoonish or hard around the edges, but, like, coming from this authentic guy helps us maybe make more space for that kind of guy in general.
I think that's a real thing though, like, this isn't even, like, us overanalyzing it, like, I do feel like that's because if you look at the bad guys in the first one, they're, like, these sophisticated aristocrats in business suits, like,
Yeah. Yeah,
that
like,
come
high
in,
profile yeah.
and then you got McClane who doesn't even have shoes, he literally has, like, a tank top and
Yeah, he's
and
not dressed.
pants, yeah, and, he's not the most educated, but it's that no nonsense, cut through the bullshit attitude,
Mhm.
that ends up, making him win at the end, like but then that just leads to some of the best, when he's like, "You're just another American cowboy who's seen too many movies." You think you're Rambo, he even name drops Rambo.
Yep,
John Wayne, Rambo.
and
Alan
he
Rickman, that's his first performance. Imagine that's your first on-screen performance, and you create one of the best villains of all time. Like,
seriously.
I just
Yeah.
I just have to, like, stand up and, like,
I mean, he
God.
is never not good. Straight up, never not good. But another reminder of how the best movies always start with the top tier talent. And
Yeah.
a villain like him is kind of a must because you need that level. And you need that level so you can see that that's where Bruce Willis is too. Like he's playing an unsophisticated person, but I think that's actually harder to do than play a sophisticated one. So
Mm.
in many ways, I like Die Hard as like an example of how in Bruce Willis's career at the time, people were like, "He's kind of soft, he's kind of sweet,
Oh, they
he isn't
hated it.
really an action star."
Like most fanboys of anything,
Exactly.
"Michael Keaton as Batman? Really? Blah, 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 like, this guy from Moonlighting is gonna be an action star?" It's just like, we have not learned our lesson to this day, people get mad at fan castings, and it's just like I'm just like,
I just
wait till it
don't
comes
know.
out. Like, just
Yeah,
wait.
wait till
You can
right.
you can say it sucks when you watch it. Like, just wait. Stop doing this. Like, oh god.
Remember that these people are actors. What they
Yes.
do is pretend.
Yeah.
So, if you think you know who they are based on one of their pretends, then that is
The
on
most
you.
recent one was Robert Pattinson
Of
that
course,
I can remember because they were
of
like,
course.
"The Twilight guy is Batman," and I'm like, in my head, because he's done fucking, like, artistic movies for the
Yes,
past
and action
decade,
movies for sure.
I'm like, "This
Mhm.
dude's gonna kill it," and he did.
Yes, nailed it. Nailed
Oh,
it.
man. So it's just
Yeah,
like,
I guess,
"Stop
like,
doing this. Just stop." That's all I can
people
say.
don't well, people just underestimate kind of like what it takes, I think, to join the ranks of John Wayne and Rambo. And I feel like I like that line in this movie because it's almost like that's the hope of a character like McClane is that he will be always mentioned in
Mhm.
conversation with these guys. And it's kind of amazing that like that did come to pass. Like because thankfully Bruce Willis showed up every time. Like if there was a weird Die Hard where he wasn't there, oh man, that would have been so awkward. So I'm glad that
I will
technically
give it that,
think
there
it's
is
done.
and I mean, all the main ones have that at least, where it's like because when you get to, like I think that's where franchises for me, like, that's, like, a non-starter for me. You can't even get the original guy back. Why am I
Yeah,
and they
why are we using the name?
and they're usually, like, direct to DVD at that point anyway too, so
That's
it's just
true.
like yeah, it's not the same, but, yeah, at least, he came back for all of them. He seems to be trying for at least, like, the first 3, and then after that, it's, like, debatable.
Number the guy he's playing in number 4 is, like, the funniest kind of guy. He's, like, the
Yeah.
guy that in the
Don't they, like,
teens,
try and make
20
fun of him for
teens.
being like, "You're an old man at now," like yeah,
Yes, and he also kinda does play into it, like, the
yeah.
character in that film is kinda like, "Yeah, jerk off, I'm still this guy. I refuse to join the next generation." And so
Like
there's, like, a kind of push and pull I don't love in there because they almost turn him into, like, not just a tough guy, but, like, kind of more of an asshole. Not just, like,
yeah,
the asshole that we always knew he was because he's a little bit of a gaslighter or something, but, like, a true asshole who's, like, mean sometimes. Like, the stuff he says about, Maggie Q in that movie when he's just trying to, like, talk shit and gaslight Timothy Olyphant, I'm just sort of like, "Man,
yeah,
McClane knows better than this.
I
He doesn't
know.
need to do this shit."
Yeah, like, I don't mean to go here, but I think John McClane is definitely voting for Trump. Like,
Yes, he twice,
I don't
right?
yeah,
Like,
I think the first time and is probably still going to at this point, like
McClane, he is that guy for sure, and I guess, like, that's what
Ooh, that
I
just gave
was
me an
curious
idea.
about. Ooh, put
An
your
action
executive
movie?
hat on?
An action movie at Trump Tower. Let's do it. Die Hard at Trump Tower.
And nah, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. Can we destroy the building?
Oh, yeah, I was
Yes.
now that I say that though, yeah, Trump would probably not approve because I would yeah, 'cause you
He'd
have
be like, "I have to be in it." Do you think
yeah,
he would try to do a cameo like he always does in movies that take place in New York?
I had to have a
God.
speaking part. I what was that was just happened in a movie. Oh, I was watching Wolf of Wall Street, recently. It's on
Oh,
Netflix.
yeah.
I just put it on. Great movie.
So good.
And I remember, listening to a podcast, and they said that Trump almost had a cameo, but he wanted, like, an extended, like, speaking part, and Scorsese was just like, "Alright, bro, like, move
Thank
on."
God. Thank
But
God. Thank God.
when I rewatched it, though, the scene where, Leo breaks up with his wife in it, they're in front of Trump Tower,
Yep.
and that happened, so I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, we'll still nod to it.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's a building that is known in the skyline right around Columbus Circle or whatever, and that's, like, a popular area to shoot, so I feel like he gets lucky in that sense, but I definitely think McLean is the dude who's out here like, "Our guy's not getting a fair shake," for sure.
yeah, and I'm trying to even think, like, how you would even, like, because 'cause I'm like, would it makes more sense to just put him on, like, some, like, terrorist team or something, but then, like, you would kind of lose out on I'm just a guy at the wrong place at the wrong time type of thing. So it's like it's kind of a lose-lose. either way. I'm sure like they have these conversations when writing the sequels.
They have
Like,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in number 2, he literally says out loud, "How can the same shit happen to the same
Twice.
guy twice?" So, like, he's definitely, like, going to call attention to this across the franchises every time he is or across the sequels, every time he is realizing that here comes another misadventure, "Oh, yeah, just pick up the kid middle of the night,
Yeah.
easy transport," you know, like, "I'm
Don't
just
they
trying to visit
blow
my
up that
son."
airplane too in the second one? The airplane
Yes,
blows up?
he
2 is
survives. He
2 is
flies
dark.
out in the chair and is able to survive it. It's
But I mean,
some
like,
funny.
the civilian plane, isn't the
Oh,
civilians
yeah.
die, right?
The
God,
terrorists
2
do
is
do crash one plane to, like, say, "What's up?"
speaking of not holding up post 9/11, sheesh.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, man, I'm watching so many good Christmas movies right now that are, like, old school, and some of them are in New York featuring that skyline, and I'm like, "Ah,
Home
man,
Alone
it is
2.
wild." Oh, the best, the best,
I think
the best.
that's another one though where it's like speaking of Trump, he's in there too.
Yes.
But but where it's like it stretches your disbelief because it's like if that happened to me as a parent the first time, he's the first one getting checked onto the plane every single time the rest of my life. You know what I
Yes,
mean? So the fact that they
exactly.
do it again, like, is so stupid.
And I love when they're with the police being like, "That's right, we did do this last year," and then
Before,
they, like,
last
knocked
time.
on wood. Yeah.
It's like they would be calling CPS at that point, I feel like, there is no
There would be a record. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Jesus.
Yeah, I guess that's the hard part about this is, like, the man McLean, that character has a hard time continuing, and it's kind of like when we were talking about the deeper films in the Rocky franchise, like, trying to find the man outside of the ring or something
Mhm.
is really impossible when we're trying to find the man outside of McLean because he's just sort of like so unwilling to change, so stubborn that almost every person that meets him is like, "You suck." And still
No one
he's
wants to
like
hang out with you.
and still he's like, "That's your problem, jerk off." I love
Yeah,
how much
good
he says
God.
jerk off.
I think
Nobody says jerk off anymore. We
I'm trying
gotta
to
bring it
bro, there
back.
was one that made me laugh in part 1 where he says, I think he says jerkweed in the first one or something like
He
that.
definitely says jerko as well at some point.
It was, like,
Lots of
something I haven't
variations.
heard. It was, like, such an '80s, like, "Yeah, that's what I said, jerkweed," or something. And I was like, "Yeah, I have not heard that. It's such a that is not used anymore."
Nope. McLean
God.
only. A McLean only catchphrase. But yeah, yeah, the character does not quite have the arc that I'd hope for, that I would hope for, but I do feel like it's one of those things where the first one, you always gotta sit still and watch. Maybe the 3rd one,
Yeah.
if you're in the mood, sit still and watch too. There's a
I
couple
think that's
things in the
where
3rd one that, like, can make me feel really uncomfortable too, like, when he and Samuel L. Jackson have, like, a debate about
oh,
racism, I'm always like, "Man, they never should have done this. Get it
I
out of
mean,
this movie."
the scene where he's holding the sign in the middle, like,
It's so bad. It's so bad.
yeah,
Sometimes I try to imagine what people in 1995, like, thought of that in real time because it's
yeah.
so extreme, but I think that's, like, where when I start to think about why people like John McClane, that movie is a great example too of, like, the Trump voting person who's like, "I know about racism, okay?"
Oh, I know.
That's, like, the final nail where I'm like, "Oh, McClane's definitely on the wrong side of this."
Oh, it's so true, it's so true. I was what's was another thing that was amazing to me is, like, speaking of, like, his catchphrases, like, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker" is such, like, a non-line. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, he literally says it as he's, like, exiting a door, like, just, like, going through, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," just, like, leaves.
Yeah.
And it's like only Bruce Willis could, like, make that, his delivery, his commitment to it. And I think what I was gonna
Memorable.
say with when you brought up Rocky, like, I think why that works better as a franchise when we talk about that as a franchise, is that them going bigger just means they pick a bigger fighter. So it's like there's
Exactly.
still realism there to where, okay, obviously in real life boxing, you wouldn't be able to fight above your class, blah blah blah. It's fine. But in Die Hard, it's like they're asking a lot of you because they are doing more and more set pieces that have to like blow up a plane or New York, like
Yeah.
so it's a lot. I do like in Die Hard 3 though, like the whole it becomes sort of they take the in one location thing of 1 and 2, but they make it more, I'm playing these games with you and you have to solve these riddles, like some
Yes.
jigsaw shit,
Yeah.
where it's like
It's
you
true.
have yeah, and so it's like he has to use his brain and him and Samuel Jackson have to, figure these things out together. So it's different. It stands out like
Mhm.
enough on its own. And it's not just like the same old thing over and over again. I think that's why that one's always fun to revisit.
It's
Be
really exciting, that
Yeah.
one. Like, I always forget what does and does not work, like, where
Same,
the
yeah.
yeah. And I agree. I think, like, the 3rd one holds the franchise up for me to the point where I'm sort of like, "Alright, I guess maybe the original story is where it is in time, and I'm gonna take these movies one at a time if I can because I do like being with McClane even though he's hard." He's, like, hanging out with my dad or something, hurts my feelings, and then I'll leave. But
Yeah.
other than that, I feel like you're right. There's not quite a story I return to. I'm not sort of like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what Jai Courtney's gonna do next because I
Oh,
care so
man.
much about McLean's kids." Like, I would see a Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Die Hard. I'd fucking see that shit any day. But I'm good on if they want Jai Courtney to continue this. Do you think they will? Like,
No.
in light of Bruce Willis kind of getting that really morbid diagnosis and just having to really
Can we
focus
cut
on
this
taking
part
care of his
out? I just
health.
don't even wanna put that energy out into the world. Like, I don't even want the possibility to, like
Right? Oh my god. I
Absolutely not. Die Hard I know I joke, but, like, it begins and ends dies hard with Bruce Willis. No one else can play John McClane. Don't even fucking try it. Um, if you're gonna do a spin-off, I guess you could do Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She's pretty actiony, like you said, but, like, isn't her character, like, just generic daughter like that?
just regular old
Yeah,
Gennaro, for sure.
can't do anything, so I don't know how that would work. I would just not even touch it. It's
There's no story really to
yeah,
continue.
there's nothing.
Uh,
Um, I think even by, like, the 5th one too, it's just like, we're out of places in America that we can put them in. Let's go to Russia, like,
I
it's,
know.
like, so stupid.
Definitely my biggest problem was like, "No way, man. McClane is an American defender,
Yes,
and he doesn't
yeah.
quite do that overseas." Like, maybe there was a funnier country for him to do that in that I could have went for, but
About to
Russia's
start
just
World
like,
War III by himself, like, the fuck?
well, that also seems like it's in line with the McClane who's going,
Right.
like, downhill in the end of the franchise. But yeah, I guess, like, unless Bruce Willis could come back, which we know he cannot, there's no
Yeah,
reason to even try to force a story because there is no story left. And while I enjoy the others, I do agree that, like, returning to the first is so clearly different than rewatching any of the other ones.
yeah. I think part of one's charm for me, even like all that stuff, we're making fun of John and like, Trump voter and all that stuff. It's just like there's like those moments where like he is tested, and I think a lot of it's more like internal, and he just sits there in it, and it's like he doesn't really speak on it. Like I mean, when the valet picks him up, and he's playing Run DMC, and he's like, "You don't have any Christmas music, man." He's like, "This is Christmas." It's just like it's sort of like he just has to sit there and take it, and it's
Yeah.
like that's the fun of it.
Mhm.
So where, some of the other ones might have just pushed it a little too far. I just like how the first one's very like it's just subtextual that this is a guy, he's not fit for California or LA or
Nope.
the
Nope.
West Coast. He's just like out of his depth in a number of ways. And so, but again, he's putting up with it because of his wife, and he wants in his family.
Yep.
So in that way, and so you're on his side at that point, because you want it to. Work out for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Alright. I mean, I think we share similar feelings just about, like, how this franchise works, just in terms of when we look at a whole franchise, and I was saying before we got on the call today, that's been my favorite part about discussing these things, is that we watch all these movies, we think about all these things, and we've been able to watch an entire franchise and then talk about it,
Mhm.
and this one is another of the greats just because it exists, but the
Yeah.
film will always stand alone. I think, as is, because people always wanna go back to the first one. No one is ever like, "It's gotta be Live Free for me, man."
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even just, like, in terms of, like, what they play on TV, I feel like the reason I've seen 2 the least is because of they never show 2.
That's right.
Sometimes they'll show 3 and 4, I've seen on a couple
Pretty
of
rare.
the movie channels, but it's always 1.
Yeah.
One is always the one that's gonna be viewed, and I think the fact that it is like a Christmas movie, for those who celebrate in that way, us movie
Mhm.
buffs, action movie buffs, makes it just that much better that it's like you can watch it once a year
That's right.
around this
Revisit it.
time and
Yeah.
remember why it was so charming and made him into an action star, like,
Yes.
even though, I'm honestly though, they just put up for the first time all the seasons of Moonlighting on Hulu,
Ooh!
which I've never sat and I've seen a few episodes, but I've never watched the entire thing. That's probably I'm gonna do that soon because,
Stick.
that was, like, how he got his start. He was the funny moonlighting, guy, detective.
Yep.
So I wanna watch that. I wanna see what the general public was seeing that they were so upset that Bruce Willis was gonna be.
Yeah.
But
An action
again,
star now.
everyone calmed down, like, whenever they announced, like, Fantastic Four finally, like, and those rumors stop, it's like,
Yep.
whoever they pick, I'm sure they have a reason, like, like, Pedro Pascal is, like, rumored to be Reed Richards, that would be amazing. He's a
Sure would.
fucking great actor. He already has the gray highlights, like,
Yes. He's
so
ready.
yes, so it's just calm down, guys. You put your foot in your mouth, every time you're wrong about it, like, just stop.
Yeah, just let it go. Just
Yeah.
let it go, you guys. Yeah, I definitely wanna hear about that, and be sure to catch The Color of Night so you can get a little peep at B. Willie's little pee-pee. It's out. There's some full frontal nudity in that one,
Oh,
male and
wow.
female, so it's also just a great time. But before we run, because I do have to run, do you wanna try to rank them, or are you just probably, like, solid, I'm throwing everything out and it's Die Hard only?
Um, you go first, and then, yeah, I'll do it too.
Alright. Well, obviously, A Good Day to Die Hard is last.
Number
I
5.
never wanna watch it again.
Yeah.
But then I think I toggled between Die Hard to, moving up to where I have Live Free or Die Hard, because I think that I like having Live Free
Wow.
or Die Hard in the background for Justin Long. That, like, I like McClane being there, but honestly, I think I like hanging out with Justin Long,
That's
which
Along's
is, like,
pretty
a
good.
random thing because he's the only character that ever gets to be with McClane without the same kind of, like, next level tension that he has with Samuel L.
He's
Like,
always
they're
great.
not the same age.
Justin Long
S
is such an underappreciated character actor. I always love
He's a
seeing
goat,
him.
dude.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Mhm. And so I feel like that's high up on my list, so I go A Good Day to Die Hard 2, A Vengeance in number 3, for symmetry, and then Live Free or Die Hard, and of course, always the original.
Yeah.
I do like the title, Live Free or Die Hard 2, it's a pretty good title.
That's probably the best thing they got away with in that movie. To be honest, the title goes hard, yeah.
Yes.
Uh, I my ranking's not much different from yours, to be honest. Just doing it in my head here. A Good Day to Die Hard, obviously, last. Get out of here.
Yep,
The box set Blu-ray I have, it's hilarious. It, like, came out after the first 4, so it doesn't even have 5 in it, and in my opinion, that's, like, just how it is.
perfect. Mhm.
Uh, number 4 would be Die Hard 2, just like you. Only difference, I would put Live Free or Die Hard number 3, Die Hard
Mm.
with a Vengeance number 2, and then, of course, original
One.
OG 1. Yeah.
Always. Yeah, yeah. This is an interesting franchise, so I'm interested to see, if anybody ats us and tell us what they think about this franchise
You
too.
guys were too hard
Um,
on Live Free on
yeah, how could
on
you guys?
Good Day to
It's
Die
true.
Hard. Jai
We really
Courtney
could
was
be.
awesome.
Joy Courtney's my favorite. I'm so sorry, Jai Courtney, I'm
I
so
know.
sorry.
He'll get his break eventually. I feel like every one of those actors where you can't force some of these guys to be leading men. That's the
That's
issue.
what it is. It's
It's
true. You tried to force him on us, and I wanna say I watched a movie called Jolt. It was an Amazon original with Kate
okay.
Beckinsale and Jai Courtney, like,
Oh,
a couple
right.
years ago.
Yeah.
It was actually dope. Like,
Okay.
that movie, I was like, "Why can't Jai Courtney do more of this, where his charisma is a part of this?" Because otherwise, he's gonna get outstaged.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm so sorry. We love
Yeah.
you so much, Jai Courtney, as a human being, just not in the Die Hard franchise.
Yeah. Just not in the franchise world. Just,
Stay
do
out of
other
there.
stuff. Yeah.
Get out of there. Yeah, yeah. Alright, cool. Anything else before we dip out?
I think that's about it, yeah.
Alright, well, let's remind the people where they can find us.
Get your fix and follow the show at We Stay Buff on Instagram and Facebook, on YouTube and Twitch at The Buffs. Follow me on Misfit_Minded on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, on X at Rampage_Misfit, and on my media review website at misfitminded.com.
Yeah. Take us for a ride and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and please leave a positive review. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, always. And you can follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at It's Me, Shani B, and give us recommendations. We want to know what you're watching too. Let us know.
And thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time for another edition of Movie Buffs.
Stay buff.
Yippee-ki-yay. Motherfucker.